Good evening, good evening, good evening, family. Good evening, good evening. Come on in, come on in, come on in. Like, tag, and share. Welcome, welcome this evening to Sidewalk Talk, second episode. The second episode on this series, I guess, a season series of Sidewalk Talk. Come on in, come on in. Like, tag, and share for impact, right? We want to like, tag, and share so this can go far and wide. So this message, an important message that we have for you tonight, can go far and wide. So, Sidewalk Talk, right? What is it? It's an online platform, right? Kind of a show, an online platform where we have real talk about the streets of Newark, New Jersey. Real talk. Right? Not stuff from books, not stuff from movies and TV shows, but real talk about the streets of Newark, New Jersey, right? And so we're gaining insight, we're clarifying misconceptions, we are getting a call to action, and we're doing all this with credible messengers. Credible messengers that are working on the front lines, that again are seeing these things with their own eyes, with their own experiences, and they are on these front lines doing the work. So that is what Sidewalk Talk is about. It is our second episode. We have an exciting episode today. Again, like, tag, and share. We won't embarrass you. Right, family? So I just want to start by introducing myself because some people may not know me. And so I am your host on tonight, Aaliyah Berry. And so for those of you who don't necessarily know my work, I am a licensed social worker here in Newark, New Jersey. I have 20 years experience working with ages 0 to 60 years old in a variety of settings, right? So I've been in daycares and schools and, after school programs and summer camps, group homes, shelters, correctional facilities. I've been in a variety of settings working with all different kinds of people. And so I am a community-based social worker. And what that means to me, what the community-based piece means to me, is the fact that this thing right here is a lifestyle. This social work thing is a lifestyle, and it doesn't necessarily only stop or happen within the four walls of an agency. And so oftentimes I find myself at baby showers and graduations, but also sentencing hearings and funerals, right? Doing goal setting on the sidewalk and hugs at a red light, right? So that is community-based social work to me. And, that's kind of what's in my heart. I'm a full-time consultant at this point with Seeds and Berries LLC. And so I do program design, training, and direct clinical services in schools, nonprofits, and government facilities. So you can follow Seeds and Berries work on Facebook and Instagram. You can follow me on LinkedIn. You can find this Sidewalk Talk series on YouTube. So we're going to have each episode is on YouTube. So this episode, if you missed it live, will be uploaded onto Seeds and Berries YouTube channel tomorrow. And you can learn more about my services at www.seedsandberries.com. See if we can do some work together. And that's enough about me, right? Sidewalk Talk. This platform and this show is really an exciting opportunity that really has three different goals. And I want to kind of help the audience understand what we're trying to do here tonight. So number one is for those people that do know me in the community, I often work with individuals who are, not heard. And when they are heard, they're misunderstood, right? And so it's important to me to kind of give their voice a platform and for, to help bridge the gap of understanding. Because oftentimes people are being judged and the conditions that drive their decisions, we assume what those conditions are. There's a lot of assumptions being made and a lot of judgment and stereotypes and things like that. That's an issue. And so it pushes certain groups away. And demonizes and alienates those groups of people. And then when they, burn down the village to feel its warmth, then that's an issue, right? And it's cyclical because, we won't even get into all that. But that whole concept is cyclical in nature. And so it's my, desire to be able to raise awareness about the conditions and the truths of those who are often not heard or misunderstood. Number two, Sidewalk Talk is a platform for providers. Like credible messengers and street soldiers that are doing this work outside, like, we need validation. We need to be supported too. And sometimes to be able to hear another person's truth in the experience that they're having in the community doing the work on the front lines, it makes us feel better. It makes us feel supported. It makes us feel like we're not alone, because it's rough out here sometimes. It's traumatizing, right? And so there are some stories that if I told you, you wouldn't believe me. And so I needed a show like this just to be able to hear my brothers and sisters in the street validate some of the experiences that we're having together, and some things that they know that I don't, right? And so that leads me to my third kind of goal of Sidewalk Talk, which is to lift up local organizations that are doing this work. Boots on the ground. Hashtag Newark strong. Hashtag Newark forward. Like, this city is dope. If you don't know about Newark, New Jersey, I don't know. You must be living under a rock, because we're doing amazing work out here, and boots on the ground organizations are out here doing the work. And so I want to be able to kind of lift up. I want to be able to lift up a platform for organizations to be able to share the work that they're doing, but also to be able to help me tell the truths, right? Because I have certain truths that I'm seeing with my own eyes, but it's these credible messengers that are going to help me tell the stories that need to be told, and also give us a call to action. We need a call to action, family, right? No offense to emails and meetings, okay? But at a certain point, emails and meetings need to transition to action. So we're here getting action steps. No matter your location, no matter your role, no matter your skill set, everyone can play a part. Everyone has a lane. Just because you're not cleaning up blood off the sidewalk, which there's a lane for that, by the way. Facts, right? But just because you're not doing that doesn't mean you don't have a lane, and doesn't mean that you can't help support these streets, right? So these local organizations are also going to give us a call to action. So what are we doing here tonight? That's Sidewalk Talk. Tonight's topic is called Holiday Blues in the Trenches. And as we've seen in some of the posts and the flyers and things like that, the fact is that the manifestation of pain, right, comes out in a variety of behaviors. It can come out as violence. It can come out in reckless behavior, in increased drug use, in aggression. These things come out in such a way that can be offensive and interpreted as disrespectful, and right? And we're gonna get into that with my guest tonight. But social services knows this already, and so we prepare for this every year. We prepare for this season every year. It does take an extra layer of support, of insight, and patience. But this year in particular, obviously, there is so much more pain, and it's exasperated by COVID, right? And so we kind of need to look at that as well. There's people in pain this year that weren't in pain last year, right? Millions of people that are in more pain this year during the holiday season. So, who I have on here today? Audience, you are in for a treat. You are in for a treat. Who we have here today is a former colleague of mine who is a dynamic individual, a dynamic, credible messenger, and his name is Carlyle Adams, and he is the program director of Lead Charter School located at 571 Central Avenue. Now, Carlyle Adams is such a credible messenger that he laughed at me when I told him the title of this show because he is one of the few who is actually talking on the sidewalk, family. Okay? He's not figuratively. He is literally talking on the sidewalk. Okay. And so that's the type of guest that we have here today. Literally talking on the sidewalk. He is consistent. He is bilingual in the language of pain. And he goes above and beyond. Now I have some examples about above and beyond, and I'm going to bring him in and split this screen so I can share the above and beyond examples as we get into this interview. Everyone ready? Let's go. Hello, Mr. Adams. Hello.
Hey, welcome. Thank you, Aaliyah. Thank you so
Yes.
much.
Yes.
First off, you are doing a tremendous job.
Thank
This is
you.
an awesome platform. This whole situation you got going on, 2020 just pushed you on another platform, sister. Continue
Definitely.
to do the work. I love this. I
Definitely.
love this.
Thank you. Thank you. So salute to you, Adams. I thought about it earlier. I said, I can't even really call him Carlisle. Like, we've been in school so long. Like, you could call me Aaliyah, but like, I'd feel weird calling you Carlisle. Like, you're Adams and all the other people we both know, all last name, right? So, but the examples that I wanted to give the audience just to kind of set the stage about where Mr. Adams' heart is in regards to above and beyond. So I have a mild, moderate, and extreme example. And I wanted you on camera while I gave these examples, Adams. So the mild example of above and beyond is Barry is coming out of the Walgreens, far off the reservation, as he said that night, far off the reservation. I'm doing me. I'm getting my hair products, whatever I'm doing in Walgreens, right? And so I'm leaving out of Walgreens, and there's a young person outside, right, asking for change. So sidewalk talk, here we go, is
Yeah.
case managing that young person on the sidewalk, right? How can I help you get your own money? Let's go. Let's talk about this. And so about 5 or 10 minutes later, Adams comes out of the Walgreens. Now I knew Adams. He was not a stranger. This is not how we met. But Adams comes out of the Walgreens. I introduce him to the young person, and he proceeds to tag team case manage this young person. We've laid out a whole treatment plan, goal setting, references, phone number, this,
Yes.
that, all across the city. I said, that man right there go hard. That man right there go hard, right? Then moderate example. We get a text 10, 11 o'clock at night that one of our students is not breathing and is in the hospital. Adams leaves wherever he was. I get out the bed, put on clothes and shoes, and go to UMD. And Adams and I stay the entire night at UMD and J with the young person and his friends who were having a difficult time navigating a macro system. Because hospitals
Yeah.
is a whole system in itself with young people that don't have no time for your shenanigans, right?
Yeah.
Hospital.
Yes.
Right? Like, who trying to do my man's dirty? What y'all trying to kill him? Like, so me and Adams in there supporting his friends, supporting him till 4 or 5 in the morning. And then the spicy example, the extreme example, which we not gonna get super into detail in public. But me and Adams have been in some sticky situations. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say. Some very sticky sidewalk situations where it was
Mm.
ride or die.
Yeah.
And Adams is a rider. I'll leave it at that. Adams is a rider. That man go hard, and you are worthy of this platform, sir. And I appreciate you being here.
Listen, those examples are the seeds to sidewalk talk.
Word.
Are the seeds. This was birthed right there at Walgreens. That's this conversation.
Yes.
That's this platform. That's the need, right? It
Absolutely.
it it, it happened, and I think the beauty of it is understanding the need for it to happen,
Absolutely.
the need for these things to happen, for you to show up, for me to show up, for me to be responsive, for you to be responsive. Those things are very important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's start with just telling us a little bit about yourself, just so that like the audience can understand kind of your lens, like professionally, and just kind of how you see things. Like we got to know our lens and tell us a little bit about yourself professionally and
Um,
your experience.
my experience starts from, I would say, reentry, working with the older population, working with fathers, working with dads, stepdads, uncles that been inside of the penal system and trying to readjust to society, right? Seeing a 60-year-old try to make the best of whatever life he has with his family, with his community, and working with those people, seeing their challenges and seeing the fight that they have, and also hearing them saying that, hey, if I knew this then, I would have been in such a different space. And then you look at, there's no return on investment when you go to prison, when you're away from your family. right? And who are the ones that feels the brunt of that? Besides the community, your child, that individual. So after spending so much years working with the adult population, um, my focus has it was about changing that, just that little piece, that insight where I could have a conversation before somebody make that wrong turn. I can highlight some things that young people are possible of obtaining and doing, and not being sold this bag of rocks
Yes.
that's being advertised all through our community,
Right. Right.
and let them know that, yo, you're smarter than this. You don't have to go to prison to know that you were smart. And that was the irony in my conversation with a lot of our participants. These guys went to Olympics, um, got their masters, and all of these things. These smart young people that went into a system that robbed them of flourishing, and it just put them in a light that, from now on, it has to be something that, instead of rebuilding, it's regenerating, so that the people that they hurt on their way in, they want to make amends
Yes.
and make sure that they have these conversations with the young people about, don't go my route. Here is why.
Yeah.
And we used to talk about the years. They talk about the amount of years in um, that they donated to the penal system. And it's crazy when the conversation on, yo, I did a bid, I did 4 bids, and it's a generational conversation. Grandpa
Definitely.
could tell you about his bid, dad can tell you about his bid, uncle could tell you about his bid, everybody can tell you about their bid. So hearing those conversations, it fuels something in me to leave the reentry work, take the education that I got, the knowledge that I got, and bring it to the young people.
Right. And so I hear you saying, I mean, and I can relate to that a lot because I work with reentry now, but still young people will always be my heart. But I've often described it as like, and like the journey of transformation, right? The journey of transformation is a thing and it's a continuum, but like where in the journey do you prefer to pour your resources? Right. And it's not to say that the reentry step, was like you transitioning from the reentry to young people is like, I just want to meet them in a different step of the journey.
Yes.
Right. And because the 13-year-old is a whole nother step of, that same journey. The 7 to 9-year-olds are a whole nother step of that journey. Like,
Talk,
who's doing 7 to
talk
9-year-olds?
about it.
That's a different sidewalk talk, Adams.
Talk,
But real talk, right? Real talk is we doing a whole lot of 16 to 24, 7 to 9-year-olds, right? Now, 16 to 24 needs that, right? And like you said, to try to be that detour. Like, let's just go this
yep.
way instead. So I respect that. And then also knowing like the 60-year-old and you having that kind of lens of the adults. And
Yeah.
so that speaks to your lens and we appreciate that. So, tonight's topic in regards to holiday blues and like how pain kind of manifests itself during the holiday season. I gave some examples kind of in the intro, but like from your perspective, like how do you see that on the ground, the pain manifesting during the holiday season?
This is the time of the year where young people that are experiencing these holiday blues become disconnected. They disconnect from school. They'll disconnect from the communication. They'll limit their communication. They'll also become reliant heavy on their coping mechanisms. Those coping mechanisms that they develop themselves. When you talk about young people, people grow in general, right? It depends on what we do, that determines how they grow. And people, it's like weeds. They're gonna grow. If you don't touch them, you ain't gotta water weeds. You ain't gotta. They grow.
Mm-hmm.
They grow up the sidewalk. They grow up this. They will grow.
Regardless.
And that
Yep.
regardless,
Yep.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have to make sure we provide guidelines for these young people,
Mm-hmm.
and be more empathetic of this is a different generation.
Mm-hmm.
What we went through as young people, we couldn't survive this. This is something new. Every generation experienced something new.
Mm-hmm.
So you talk about how they exemplify these things and what they do. This is an open season.
Mm-hmm.
If you're trying to create mischief, the holiday season provides you so much opportunity to grab young people to go wherever you want them to go because they don't have that connection,
Mm-hmm.
right? And for again, the cycle is something that we have to pay attention to.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I didn't have a great family upbringing, right, and if my sisters and my brothers and my mom and my parents, my wife and everybody don't check in on me, right? That's my norm,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? You know my greeting, hey, good morning, talk to me.
Yes.
Those are my norms.
Yes.
So we have to realize young people, what are their norms? What have we conditioned them to?
Mm-hmm.
We have conditioned them to some serious situation and not provide them with the tools to deal with it, but are mad at the way they handle it.
Yes. Yes. And so I hear you you mentioned cycle, right? Like to address the cycles. And so it leads me to just think about one of the examples of how like pain manifests is violence. Right? And like the holiday season, I mean, yes, the summertime is typically, more violent or whatever. It's a lot more people outside. I've also heard individuals say more violence happens in the winter because there's less witnesses. I'll just leave that there
What do you even
without
see
too much
that?
detail. But right, but like so the winter, and he said the winter because there are less witnesses because there are less people outside. But the holiday season tends to be a more violent season, and I don't know if we end up putting the two and two together. But I want to bring up a particular loss that the community had that triggers me every holiday season. And just speaking about the cycles, how this kind of works. So Miss Cherie was a mother in the community who was an activist. She was planning a community meeting at the time that on Thanksgiving night she was carjacked and murdered for her Kia Sorento in the presence of her 10-year-old nephew. And so that thing really disturbed me. And so for those of you who don't know, I mean, I did say correctional facility, but I work with violent offenders. And I talk about that story on a regular because there were so many parts of that story that is not how that's supposed to go. Women, children, Kia Sorento,
Yeah.
killed for, I mean, there's just on a Thanksgiving, but it made me think about the offenders on Thanksgiving night, what it was really on their heart and what they're feeling. Not to say you can explain, Adams, like what they particularly were feeling, but then it also triggers me every Thanksgiving. And I'm sure Miss Cherie's family is
Mhm.
triggered every Thanksgiving, and the offender's family is triggered every Thanksgiving, and triggers then can cause more violence. That thing
Yes,
is a crazy cycle that just
that's a
happens
crazy cycle.
annually. So, like, what are
That's
your
the
thoughts
crazy
on that?
cycle.
Yeah.
So when you talk about that cycle, it's multifaceted because you talk about the victims, right? The victims would even not want to celebrate these type of holidays.
Yes.
This is the
Yes.
blue, right?
The
It
blue.
triggered.
Yes.
So this also make them distant from the family because there's a lot of blame that goes on when there's death in the family. regardless of who did it, right? There's always blame. And there's a lot of dysfunction in the beginning of the family structure. Then to add this trauma with no solution, with no therapy, with
Right.
no empathy,
Yep.
with no support, right? Because sometimes the ones that need the most support is the strong ones, the one who has always been there, making sure everybody is good. What happens when they need support, right? So this cycle, again, it's a whirlwind. It's not just a simple cycle because if if the person that holds the tradition for the family is
Right.
gone,
Right. Yes.
right?
Yep.
That's big mama, grandma,
Yep.
that person is gone. That's who you relied on to hold the family structure. That's who you relied on to provide us with these holiday meals, right? To provide us with all of these stories and things about our culture and our family. And that's robbed, that's taken from you.
Right.
It's only some of us that had the opportunity to sit down and be introspective, to look at life and try to have an understanding of life itself, to see what was this person's intent on this planet
Yes.
and what was done while they were here.
Right.
But that's talking on, adult, education, and you're
Right.
good and you can understand, you can
Right.
process
Right.
these things.
Right.
We're talking about people that nobody taught us how to process anything, right? Nobody taught us how to process a no. Nobody taught us how to process a no. We're not hiring you. Like nobody ever taught us how to process these things,
Right. Right.
right?
Yeah, which then impacts the self esteem, which then makes me feel terrible, which then makes me want to not go get the job you talking about, Adams. I don't know how to do that. That what you were talking about, this job and dress up
We,
and say the
we,
words you
we
want me
got,
to use, Adams, in that interview.
but that's where it is our responsibility to make sure that we do as much as we can because little was done for us. We have to make sure everyone does not bloom at the same time. Everyone does not process things the same. This generation is being called name.
Yeah,
Our generation was being called name.
yeah,
Your grandparents' generation, when they was younger, they were knuckleheads also. So I just want to make sure the adults know that this is not a lost generation. The lost title is always placed on the young.
yeah,
Every new generation was always looked as they're wayward, they're hard-headed, they're stubborn, they don't want to learn. But what that is that the young see things different. It's a different lens.
totally different. And
It's
we're gonna and totally different. And in regards to understanding the lens, that's like more towards the action when we get to the action, because people could be watching this and saying like, okay, yeah, they have a different lens, but I have no idea what they're seeing, right? Like, Adams, you the whisperer, like you're the child whisperer. You go and tell me what they're saying, because I don't know what these kids are on right
and you
now.
know what,
Yeah,
Aaliyah,
yeah.
that's the accountability on us.
That's in
We
the
have to sit
action. Yes. Yeah. So we're gonna get
right.
to the action because I want you to be able to tell the audience what to do. Right? Like what can I do about it? And I want to further explore like what it looks like so that we can then kind of tell them what to do. So I've heard you say this for years, Adams, which is to be the guardrail, right? You have always said that. That's like the motto that should be up on your wall somewhere. Like to be the guardrail is an important concept because, and you said this earlier about being in the passenger seat, right? Like we're not driving anybody's car. Like we are either in the passenger seat, or the other analogy is the guardrail. And during the holiday season, it like requires extra padding on that guardrail, and especially when it comes to violence. And I want to specifically kind of target that piece because that is the most urgent piece, right? Because then people are outraged over Miss Cherie that night and that day, and I was as well. But like, did we ever look at our role in supporting those who were responsible for that crime? Right? Like, who grew up next to, and I'm not coming for nobody, you know what I'm saying? But like, who knew the young people that were involved in that, and how can we better support them? And at what
Yeah.
point do we take that accountability to be a guardrail, especially for young people who have a tendency to turn their pain and turn it into violence? That's
Yeah.
the most urgent thing right now, because that's the issue. We don't want any lost life. So how do you loss of life both in prison and in the
Yeah.
grave, you know what I mean? But how would you say like your guardrail looks in the holidays? Like how do you support, and how has COVID changed what you look like as a guardrail?
So the guardrail um, comes way before the holiday season.
Mm-hmm.
Way before the holiday
Yep.
season.
Yep.
Um, those are those sidewalk talks
Yep.
with young people, whether they listening to you or they got their headphones in, and you just walking next to them and talking to them, right? Understanding that not because they're not responding the way you want them to, don't mean that they're not listening to you, right? And sometimes the adults get subjective.
What do you mean by that?
They if I'm talking to you, I need you to look at me, right? Even though that you are frustrated or angry about something, I would want you to stop what you are doing, your emotion that's out of control.
And look at
I'm
me.
asking you to control it just like that and
Yes.
talk to me.
Yes.
That's not how it works. Got to be strategic. Just like every great food, there's a recipe to it. You just can't throw everything in there. You got to take your time, right? So what you have to understand is what you are being allowed to do. When a young person is walking off and you are walking besides them and you are still talking to them, they are letting you know right there and then that they are listening.
Yes. 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 Yes.
I've walked to Dunkin'
That's
Donuts and
facts.
IHOP in the middle of the day for
Yes.
vanilla chai tea because of
I'm
somebody
getting a
who,
tea. I don't know what you doing, little bro. I'm just getting a tea. Like, oh, Adams, you doing too much. I'm just getting a tea. What's up?
right,
Like, we
right?
good?
And on that walk,
Yes.
you stop on, watch the light, and then you got to be strategic because the end of the day, you are trying to get a message to that young person. You are trying to get don't matter how they get it. You can text them while they're walking next to you. You can put it on a backpack, put it in a note, say, hey, don't open this till you reach home. We have to make sure that these are intentional touch points because you're not trying to be this young person best friend. You are
Right.
trying to make sure you make these deposits because little by little, those deposits provide a platform for young people to open up and unpack, right?
Yes.
So that it is something that we have to be aware of our wants and our expectations
As adults.
as adults.
Yes. Because
As a
adultism is bad.
oh yeah,
Adultism, like, yeah, how do we even evaluate our own level? Like the example you gave, the look at me when I'm talking to you, that thing was a great example. Like how as adults do we evaluate when we're doing that, and like, and that ends up pushing the young person or anyone, it can be your staff member, I mean whatever, but like pushing somebody away, and then you get more mad that they're walking away, but it's because you're adulting them. Like, how do we kind of self evaluate and turn that thing off? Like, let me, like,
We
how do you,
are the best to assess everyone else but ourselves.
right, right.
And the old saying says, when you point a finger at someone, remember four is pointing back at you,
One
right?
and four
And
back at me. That's good. Yes, yes.
so we have to really, again, as we grow on this planet, as we all evolve, we have to make sure that we are being enlightened on another level. We have to make sure that we are being the best version of ourselves every year. Every year we have the opportunity. Every day you have the opportunity to learn. No one knows it all, right? But you become a better person when you understand how you process with yourself and how you process others. So if you could assess someone, you should be able to assess yourself 10 times down to the T than that person, right? We have
Right.
to be aware, especially if you're working with people, you have to be aware of how you come off.
Right. And especially you said what, you can also, you can learn from young people. So like the whole adultism thing is, it's us thinking that we are better than. Like, I'm an
Yeah,
adult, so I know better than you, so you should listen to me. But like, our young people are walking around with wisdom that we have yet to acquire. I mean,
yeah.
who's to say just because I'm an adult I know better? That's not the case. I mean, there are some things that they can teach us.
And that is something that once the conversation you have with young people opens up that platform.
Yep. Yep.
Let them know that, "Yo, I don't know how you do this. Tell me how you do this."
Right. Right.
You are giving them a sense of empowerment.
Right. So
We all
right.
need a sense of empowerment,
Yes. That it's more a
right?
reciprocal relationship.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And if you look at again the grim time of this COVID 2020, it's a challenge. It's a challenge because the in-person interaction or the in-person meeting provides a scan. You know your young people. You know your young person. So as soon as you see them, you can scan them automatic, right? You provide a scan, an assessment, and a check-in. As soon as you see them in person, right? You can get all of that before they can say a word. You know your young people. So as
Yeah.
soon as you see them come through the door, you already assess them.
Right. Right.
This COVID 2020 has, you try to talk to a young person, first of all, FaceTime, you're looking at the ceiling, right?
I want
You're
to see
looking
your
at the
face and
ceiling.
know you're feeling word. What do you? Come on, bro. Let me see. Chill, Miss Berry. Chill. He said, first of all, you're gonna be looking at the ceiling.
You're looking at the ceiling. Like, I
I
don't
can't
know,
scan you the ceiling, sir.
right?
Yeah.
So it it provide a challenge, but it also for us in this service industry, it we got to think outside the box, right? And we have to make sure that you mentioned about young people knowing things and teaching us. We have to know the platform that they use to communicate. Young people phone are always off, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they online, they know how to do the airdrop. And if you don't know that and you're working with young people,
And the
you're
WhatsApp
not
and the
working with young
DM, the
people.
WhatsApp and the
Yeah.
DM, and yep, you got to know
If
where they're
you
at.
are if you consider yourself working with young people and don't know the platform that young people use to communicate, you are not working with young people.
Come on with the real talk, Adams. You better come through with that real talk on this sidewalk talk. That's real talk.
Yes, yes.
So,
Um,
in regards to the action though, because now you're on to action. Like so, because a DM, like as you're talking about going through their social media, like finding them, finding where they are, especially with COVID considerations, because otherwise, when they came into the school, you were able to scan them and
yeah.
then serve them. Now it's this kind of thing. So like for schools or providers, let's start there. But then a lot of this audience is not school or providers, and we want to give them action steps as well. And then we're gonna get into lead and just like what you do and how you do it. But let's start with providers, like people that work out here with COVID. How should we be? Because scanning, all of us can relate to that. I know exactly what you mean by that. Other providers know what you mean by that. How do you like give us some ideas about how to best scan the people that we serve in this holiday season with COVID?
Man, these check-ins have to be um you got to hear a voice.
Okay.
You got to hear their voices.
Yeah, because you can hear it in their voice.
You can hear it in their voices.
Yes.
If
Yes.
they don't want to do they got Google Meet, you got Zoom,
Yeah.
schedule all these platforms to just show me an eyebrow,
Show me an
right?
eyebrow, Adams.
Show me
Bless
an
your
eyebrow.
heart. Bless your heart in this season, Adams. Show me an eyebrow. For
Show me an
real?
eyebrow. Let
Oh
me know
God.
it's you. Let me know you're good.
Yeah.
Um, but again, this the work doesn't start now, so it's not a
Right.
challenge to do it,
Right.
right? This is something that's been laid foundationally from the first time they step through your doors, whether your interaction with them was negative or positive. That's the relationship starter right there, whether it was negative or positive. I have Miss White. Miss White blew up. My first interaction with Miss White blew up, explosion. I get a phone call to check in. Hey, Adams, why you in? Call me. You
Yeah, because her heart is pure. And we won't get
listen.
into who
We're
and
not.
where and what, but
Another
her
episode.
love is real. Facts.
Yes.
Yep.
But those foundational pieces have to been put in place. You can't just try to do something now and expect the young person to
To
just
show
open
you an
up.
eyebrow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Who are you?
Why do you
There's
need to see my eyebrow? I don't know
the
you.
relationship. The relationship is sour.
Right. Right.
So making sure that we acknowledge the interaction with a young person, it's the beginning of the relationship.
Right.
If that interaction is negative, y'all got a bad relationship.
But it's still a relationship.
It's still a relationship.
Right.
It's just bad.
Right.
And and as the person that's supposed to be working with that young person, your job is to make sure that relationship is a healthy relationship,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
And you will understand so much from young people when you allow them to unpack unedited, raw, pure.
So right there, right? Let's transition to based on time, but like let's transition to the non-provider, right? Because if I have a teenager in my home, or I have a next door neighbor, I have this kid next door that I see all the time that I know his home is not what it should, right? Like a lot of times we know in our own neighborhoods who is doing what, how people are feeling. So like, let's just say the community member. How let's like, how do you like if you don't necessarily have a relationship already or the relationship is sour? What do you do right now, Adams, like during COVID with a young person in your home or a young person in your neighborhood and you're not a provider?
As an individual, we all build relationships. Through this life, we build relationships. Stop looking at the young people as they don't want no better. Stop looking at them as a burden, right? So you see young people creating mischief and young people a little wayward. It's our responsibility to talk to them. And again, we're not trying to get you to turn around, right? Go straight and narrow. Just let me talk to you for a second. You see him on the stoop, you say hi.
Right, because maybe I don't know what to say to him. Like Adams, I
Just
don't know
say
how to counsel him. I don't know what to all say to him. Say hi, say good morning.
a greeting. A greeting is the most important way to start the morning. And I think we got away from when they put it in neighborhoods and they took away the village, it took away so much from our tradition on what we're used to. And everybody just got this mind your own business syndrome. Man, that's not my problem.
Right,
But it is your problem,
right, right.
right? The same little kid that you see every day that's breaking windows and you ain't saying nothing because he ain't broke yours.
Because he didn't break yours.
No,
So that's not my problem or my
no,
business.
it's not. And and
That's
and
right.
I've seen people with immaculate houses, nice lawn, right? But their neighbors is trash and there's grass growing and everything all over the place. And what that person don't realize, when they assess the value of your house, they assess the value from the entire community, from that block. So for us, when we're being assessed, right, these young people are a reflection of us. And sometimes, we might know the words to say, but that's a great way to start the conversation. Hey, man, I don't know what to say. I just see you, a young person. I don't want nothing bad happen to you. I don't know what to say.
But I see you. I
I,
see you. And that's the key part, Adams, because again, going back to incidences that happen on holidays, and granted, crime happens all year, but the things that happen on the night or eves or days of holidays, who greeted that person? The offender. Who greeted that person? Who offered him a plate? Who offered for him to come eat with them?
yeah, yeah.
Right? Like,
And
so I see you.
who's okaying the plan? Who's
Well,
okaying the
that's a whole
plot?
nother look, Adams. That's a
Come
whole nother
on.
episode. That is a whole nother episode. Okay, Adams, we gonna get beside ourselves because that's a whole nother episode as to how the code
Oh,
and the rules and the expectations and who's training who. Look, we could. That's a whole nother episode. So, with the time, I want to be able to highlight the organization, right? Because I love me some Lead Charter School, Opportunity Youth Network. Y'all, my heart, obviously. Gladiators, cream of the crop staff, doing cream of the crop work. Um, Tell us about Lead. Tell us about what y'all do and how you do it. Because an action item can be refer young people to this umbrella and this house of love. And that really came from my heart. Like, if you know a young person that needs a house of love, send them on this
yes,
way. So think
yes,
about people you may know as Mr. Adams speaks about Lead. So go ahead.
yes. So, Lead Charter School, it's a charter school for 16 to 21-year-old over age unaccredited young people in the city of Newark, and we're trying to get the neighboring township. Um, we provide opportunity for these young people where they will earn their credits, but also they'll earn the opportunity to build their skills. When you look at this year that we're living in, it's more so important that young people survive on their skills. And I'm not talking about the hard skills. I'm talking about these soft skills, right? Mastering their emotions, because this is testing everyone like none other. Um, so for us, we provide young people with social emotional learning. And to those who are not too keen with social emotional learning, for the past 20 years, that's one of the top focus area for new education, talking to young people about their emotions and focusing on how they can process their emotions as important as academic. In traditional school, academia is the focal point. You come in to learn math, English, science, social studies. That's what you got to learn. Whether you're hungry, your lights were cut off,
Right.
you slept somewhere you didn't sleep, did you got your homework done? So the social emotional piece is very important in our structure, where it provides young people with seminar, provide them with the opportunity to discuss things on their level, right? We validate providing young people with the opportunity to let their voices be heard. And I think that go back to the conversation, Aaliyah, that's important. We got to let our young people know that they have a voice, and that voice can produce so much wisdom and intelligence, right? So validating how they feeling, first of all, we got to validate their experience. We got to validate their journey. And maybe some of the things that they will share in that validation might be wrong, but that's where we educate them. Educate them on what's next steps, how should they take approach, what's advocacy, and the importance of advocacy. Right? You're not, when it comes to your education, you should not be begging anyone for your education. You should be advocating for your education. There's a lot of options when it comes to education for young people, and letting them know that not because one school deem you as a failure because of them means that you should stop your educational journey.
Right.
There's so much young people that came through our doors that said, I can't do this because they said I got an IEP. I can't do this because they said I'm too old, or I
Cause they
can't get
said, cause they
because of
said,
they.
cause they said, cause they said.
And it is so important that they say becomes what you say.
Yep.
You become the
And it
new
can be
they.
mom, principal, neighbor. The crossing guard said I, da da da
Yeah,
da da.
yeah,
And then, like you
yeah. And
said, you
I think
internalize that.
when you look at just understanding self and self determination and self worth, when you have young people that didn't have a good experience in their educational journey, that goes on their self esteem. So
And then it
with
comes
me,
out in so many other ways, is what we're talking about today. Is that
always,
pain manifests in so many other ways. Like putting your head down on the desk. That's a self
yeah,
esteem issue. That's not a non compliance, right?
yeah,
Like, or many other issues. That's why I slept on the bench last night and I'm really tired, more tired than this math worksheet you got for me. Right? So let me ask you this, Adam. So just from a logistical standpoint, a new cohort, what is the admissions enrollment process looking like at this point?
so we're doing open enrollment now.
Okay. In
Um,
person, do they
and
walk in where
they
or?
can go online
Okay.
to leadcharterschool.org
Okay.
and complete the application.
Okay.
There's an initial application, and then there is an intake form. They will receive phone calls and follow up on next
Got
steps.
it. Got
but
it.
they will have to go to leadcharterschool.org to complete the application,
Okay.
which is easy. If you go on our website, you'll see the application is on there,
Okay.
and they can complete it that way.
Okay.
If you have a young person that are out of school or just struggling because of this platform, this virtual platform, there are options. If you got a young person, I'm talking to the professionals. You are a guidance counselor or an aide in the school, and you have young people on your roster, and somebody's just holding on to them just because.
Right.
Send them to us.
Right.
You know,
Because
they
yeah,
can learn.
yeah, because as we talked about earlier, for the guidance counselors or aides, that you see a young person struggling with COVID learning and falling super behind, and we know at the high school level, like if I'm falling so much behind, at some point I'm gonna say I don't have a chance and I might as well just drop
Yep.
out. And so as Mr. Adams is saying, send them over there because if they're overaged, undercredited, right? So they are older and have so little credits that they can't catch up in time and they will age out of the school system in less, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
lead is definitely an option for them. So they fill out the application on leadcharterschool.org and then somebody follows up with a phone call
Yes. Live
for
phone
next steps.
call
Okay.
for next step. That's all
Okay.
part of the touch points.
Okay.
Make sure that we get in contact with young people.
Okay. And so you guys are live and direct, COVID or not. Phones are working, emails are working, websites are
Everything,
working.
website,
Okay.
Zoom, Google Meet,
We out here doing the
call
work.
511.
Okay.
Yes, we can set them up.
Okay. So we clarified a whole lot of misconceptions today. So that's not even necessarily a specific question, but we appreciate you, Adams. We appreciate you. We appreciate you. And a lot of times, like, we don't necessarily hear that enough that, like, your sacrificial work, your selfless approach to our young people is appreciated. It is seen, it is necessary, and not just you, but of course your staff, because you have a dynamic staff. Like the whole network has a dynamic, like I said, gladiator staff, and so you guys are out here doing the work, come hell or high water, right? COVID or not, we look, that doesn't necessarily stop like the work in the streets on the sidewalk.
It doesn't.
So
It doesn't.
we appreciate you and we appreciate your staff and the Opportunity Youth Network and Lead Charter School, and and we appreciate you and may the force be with you.
Thank you very much, Aaliyah. Again, thank you for this platform, um, giving me the opportunity to talk about something that's very passionate. Again, this those simple, intricate, hey, how are you? Just continue to do that with young people.
Right, absolutely.
Just piece by piece. Don't try to get too
Absolutely.
much at the same time, piece by piece.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Adams. Thank you. Thank you. Have a good night. All
Thank you,
right.
Aaliyah. Bless.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
That was an awesome show, everybody, right? An awesome conversation. Just the wealth of knowledge that Mr. Adams has, the experience that he has, the lens that he has. He was the perfect guest to be able to talk about this particular topic. When I thought about the topic, I thought about Carlyle Adams. So I'm so grateful that he was able to come and share his insight. A quick summary about the action steps, right? Let's speak. Say good morning, say hello, right? Speak to those who are around us, whether that's in the homes, in the schools, on the street, whatever the case may be. Let's begin to see each other, especially during COVID and especially during this time of the holiday season, to be able to see each other, to be able to ask, hey, how are you feeling? Right? Adams talked about the students being able to say how they're feeling, and how often are we asked, what are you feeling today? Sometimes we're so conditioned to say, I'm good. How are you? I'm good. How are you? I'm good. I'm good. How are you? I'm good. But we can be terrible, right? How are you feeling? That's good that you're good. I'm good too. Now, how are you feeling? Well, actually, I'm feeling betrayed. I'm feeling in grief because I lost 7 friends and my grandmother in COVID, right? Like, but they just said they were good. So it's important that we really begin to see each other and see each other's humanity. That is the action steps at this point that we can do. especially if we know young people who their pain translates into violence. That's somewhat urgent, right? We need to wrap our arms around them and begin to be the padded guardrail, especially during this time. So this right here, though, is the real action step, just lifting up the organization of Lead Charter School. They are accepting young people now who are overage, undercredited. If you know a young person, 16 to 21, that they need to earn their diploma, get certified in a trade, and they need guidance. They need all that love that Mr. Adams just spoke about and spoke from his heart. Like, that's the brand, right? That is the brand of love that they provide to young people. So if you know a young person that needs that, definitely you can call the phone number, have them fill out an application on the website, which is www.leadcharter.org. And you can also continue to follow me and my services at www.seedsandberries.com. If you missed this episode live, you can check it out on the YouTube channel tomorrow. And we will see you again soon. When? When will we see you? We will see you on January 2nd at 8 p.m. So this is every other Saturday, Sidewalk Talk. And so we will see you on January 2nd. The topic is goal setting on the block. Goal setting on the block, okay? Not necessarily, I mean, schools and offices are good to goal set because goal setting is important, but like, how do we goal set on the block? How do you guide without telling? We just talked about adultism, right? How do you not tell people what their goals should be? And if they're not that, then you're not thinking seriously. What are you doing with the rest of your life if it's not this? Right? How do you guide without telling? How do you guide without judging? How do you hold accountable with love? Right? How are we getting to the bottom of it? Because if the goal wasn't completed, is it a self-esteem issue? Like there's like the whole thing about goal setting is a very sensitive dynamic. And so but it's an important one. It's an important one. So on January 2nd, we have a reputable leader in the city who is also a street mother. And so I will have her on talking about that. And then part 2 later in the month will be a young person who is also a leader, a peer leader. He's an outreach specialist in the community. And so he'll be talking about goal setting through his lens and how that really needs to be done from his lens. So that is what the month of January looks like on Sidewalk Talk. I thank you for all of your support, participation, for the comments on tonight. I thank you for the love, and let's continue to love on each other no matter what your lane is. Let's continue to love on each other according to our lane. Have a good night.